So this is Azure Automation. Azure Automation allows us to automate all of our IT tasks either in Azure itself or other cloud vendors, as well as our on-premises infrastructure. There are several ways that automation can be done, and one of those ways is to use our existing PowerShell scripts, create runbooks visually. Also, there's a REST API, and there's also a .NET Azure Management Library, so we can use C# or VB.NET. Now, one of the pros, of course, is that it's rapidly evolving, so there are new features being added all the time. Of course, at the same time, it's also a setback in documentation. So it's very difficult to find the latest way to do something, and oftentimes it's conflicting. Now, there are actually 20 regions already throughout the world, so it's a very global presence. Now with runbooks, basically they're PowerShell scripts. There's also a runbook gallery that's available in a portal. Essentially it's like an app store, so we can grab and modify existing runbooks that have been uploaded by somebody else. And this is an example of the graphical editor where we can grab stuff from the left hand side, move it to the workflow in the middle, and there's a properties tab on the right. Once we download customized PowerShell console, we can use an existing PowerShell console as well, but this customized one allows us to very easily connect to our Azure account with just one command, and you can see we sign in here. And then by issuing a single command such as new Azure website, we can create a new website, and we can very easily remove or stop websites or launch VMs with a single command as well by passing various parameters. Also programmatically, there's the Azure Management Library, which allows us to automate our cloud with .NET languages. Essentially we sign in and then we can issue commands this way through an SDK. And finally, Microsoft also recently released an operations management suite for hybrid cloud infrastructure as well. Okay, now that we went through an overview real quick of Azure Automation, let's dive in a little bit deeper into a couple of demos and see how automation works. So there are a couple of different ways that we mentioned we can automate our resources, either in Azure or in our on-premises infrastructure. So one of those ways is through either our existing PowerShell scripts or through new PowerShell scripts, or even ones that we build through the graphical authoring tool found on the Azure portal. There is also a REST API and a management library in .NET that we can tap into with languages such as C# and Visual Basic. So first, let's take a look at the PowerShell approach, since that's most likely the one that you'll begin using when initially starting to automate Azure. PowerShell has the most current documentation at the moment. We can use our existing console as well, but this actually simplifies things in terms of connecting to our Azure account and running various commandlets, some of which you can see here. I already connected to my account on Azure by running this commandlet here, the add Azure account. Now it displays credentials once you log in, such as your subscription ID. And that subscription ID you'll actually need in order to connect to the Azure account through .NET, through the management library as well. But after that, I also ran the get help Azure commandlet, which displays all of these commandlets that are available to us. I've already created a sample where, as you can see, we connect to the account, and then subsequently we create a new website called Cloud E90 website, and then we get some information about the website, and finally we also remove the website, so we can actually test this out one by one and make sure that our website is being created, and then what happens on the actual web browser when we try to open it. I already created a virtual machine on Azure, and we're going to start it. At this moment it is in the stop state. Make sure that it's running, and then we're going to subsequently stop it also, which also deallocates the virtual machine so that we're not being charged on our account. Let's go ahead and run this first commandlet here. So what this will do, you can see this is the part of the host name. This has to be unique on Azure. And when we run this, a website gets created very quickly. Right now, if we were to try to open this website in the browser, we can see that it's not found. So let's go ahead and run this command, the new Azure website, as well as providing a unique name for the host name. Everything seems to be good. Let's make sure that it appears in the browser as expected. So we'll go ahead and copy this name from here and go in our browser, and there we have it. So it's running successfully. Let's go ahead and actually stop it at this point and see whether this still appears. So first of all, actually, let's go ahead and get some more information. Get this information at any point. So we can see that it's running. And actually here I have another one that's running as well, which is the original Cloud E90 website. And as we just saw, we created number 2 over here. So let's go ahead and remove both of these. And when removing or providing parameters, we typically just provide a flag like this. In this case, it's name. Whenever you have a name flag, it's always going to be a string. So here we're going to provide both of our websites. So there's one, and we remove it. We just confirm that we'd like to delete it. And there we have it. So now they should be both removed. And when we go into our browser, and here again is our website number 2, and we run this again, it's no longer found. So very quick, we can provision and remove websites very quickly. So what we can do now is actually go ahead and start our virtual machine that we saw earlier. I have a couple of virtual machines in my account that are currently stopped, and as you can see are deallocated. So whenever our virtual machines are stopped or deallocated, we're not being charged for it in our account. So let's say we want to automatically every morning launch a couple of virtual machines, and then at the end of the day deallocate them so we're not being charged overnight when they're not in use. Here we'll go ahead and start our virtual machine, and rather than only the name flag as we had for the websites, we actually have a service name flag as well. And the service name is found actually by going to the Cloud Services tab, and as you can see, it's right here, and right now we're showing suspended for it. There's another virtual machine too, but right now we'll focus on the Visual Studio 2015. So if we come back to our Classic tab, here's our name, and that was the service name. So when we put it into our Azure PowerShell, I should go ahead and just paste it in. And we run this, we'll see in a few minutes that the virtual machine is indeed starting up. And this might take a few moments here as well. There is a certain lag that we notice when we refresh the page here. We're still showing a stop deallocated. So it's going to take some time for everything to get going. And you can see we're still launching over here. And within a few moments, we can see that we succeeded over here. So the virtual machine is essentially starting up now. However, here we're still showing that it's starting, so we can't technically connect to it. And here I actually just grabbed the IP address for the new instance of this virtual machine, and we can test this out to ensure that we're able to connect in a moment once it's actually up and running. Okay, so now when we refresh the page again, we can see that it's running. So let's go ahead and try to connect to it with the remote desktop. And provide the updated IP address. So here's the virtual machine that we just started. Again, here's the host name, Visual Studio 2015. Once we're done with it, we can go ahead and deallocate it automatically as well. So I'll go ahead and click out of the remote desktop connection. We can see we can actually stop, restart it here, we can reset it. And another important point is capturing an image actually, is once we stop the virtual machine, we can capture an image of the instance and use those images to launch other virtual machines going forward. And we can do that through PowerShell as well. Just go ahead and stop this one. Okay, and here we can see that we succeeded at stopping the virtual machine. If we were to try and connect to the virtual machine via remote desktop now, we can see that we can no longer connect. And here we have it, so it's now stopped and deallocated. We could also launch VMs here by providing additional parameters. Now, in addition to PowerShell, we can also automate everything through .NET. Microsoft makes available the Azure Management Library, which is available through NuGet in Visual Studio. This is a sample that basically allows us to pull a couple of properties and display them in console. Now over here, as we can see, we have our credentials. I X'd them out. The actual credentials are in here, but they're a little bit further up in the code. As you can see here, we have two, but the actual credentials which we're using are just the regular credentials, which are located above. But to get these credentials, we get the subscription ID from Azure PowerShell. So when we actually ran the Add Azure account, the subscription ID is displayed. In addition to that, we can also run the Get Azure Subscription commandlet, and that would also display our subscription ID. Now, to get the encoded certificate value, there is a published settings file which is available from this website on Azure. So when we go to this website and log in, we are able to download this file, which is essentially a credentials.publish settings file, as we can see here. And well, inside that file, when we open it in Notepad or another text editor, for instance, there is a value called management certificate. We simply grab that value and paste it in between the quotes here, which is then used to instantiate the credentials object here. So let's go ahead and actually, when we run this, as we can see here, this allows us to pull the API version, and then we also pull the user agent as well, and we display it in the console. So let's go ahead and run this real quick. And here we have the compiled version here. So here's our API version that we see, and the output as well for the user agent. So we've successfully authenticated, and then we retrieve a couple of property values from Azure and display them on our account. Now, going forward, of course, you can also create virtual machines. Pretty much everything that we can do via PowerShell is easily accessible through .NET. There we have it. We have a couple of demos. We have a complete PowerShell workflow, which you can, going forward, modify and continue using to automate your infrastructure, as well as some base code for C#. And one other thing that we can cover as well is for the references, they're actually available in managed NuGet packages. So when we open this up, and search for the Azure Management Library, and here we have it. So it's the Microsoft Azure Automation Management Library, and we add this to our project as a reference, at which point this gives us a lot of the base functionality. And as you can see, there are many other libraries available as well for specific services available in Azure. And that pretty much covers it. So now we have the PowerShell commandlets and the workflow. Now, one other thing that is possible is to load the PowerShell workflow into the portal and have that as a runbook right within the Azure portal. In addition to that, you can launch these PowerShell scripts from other scripts, such as VBScript or other PowerShell scripts, or of course you can also launch them from within C# and intertwine them with other code that you may have. So that covers it.